What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro.
What's going on, everybody? Other half of the podcast, Kevin Valentin. Kyle, what's on the topic, baby? What we talking about?
So we're gonna switch things up. Usually we always talk about sports here, but we're gonna switch it up and we're gonna talk a little bit about pop culture today. We're gonna focus on one of the newer trailers to come out for the new Spider-Man movie that's gonna come out in December. I believe it's gonna come out December 17th. The movie is called Spider-Man: No Way Home, and it will be the third installation of the newest Spider-Man series with Tom Holland as the main character of Spider-Man. So the new trailer got released. Obviously, whenever a new trailer comes out for Spider-Man, it's going to generate a lot of takes, a lot of opinions, and Kevin is definitely our superhero buff when it comes to these movie reviews and these trailer reviews. So I'm going to kind of lean on his expertise when it comes to this one. So, Kevin, I got to ask you, with the new trailer coming out for Spider Man, just what was your initial take and what do you think this movie's going to shape out to be when it's released in December?
First and foremost, the fact that this trailer took this long to come out, I understand where Kevin Feige, the CEO of Marvel, is what he was doing in terms of building up anticipation, marketing ploys, making as much money as they can prior. But I'm not gonna lie to you, the buildup was great. The reveal of some of the villains was great. Again, heads up, spoiler alert if you have not seen it. I'm just letting everybody know, stop watching if you haven't seen it. I'm going to talk about it pretty in depth here. Kyle and I are going to really try to get into some of our opinions as to what we think was good and what we think were bad. But like I said, seeing the trailer the first time, I've watched it like 100 times at this point. Seeing the trailer the first time was exciting until I started to actually like really start to hone in and pay attention as to what was going on in the trailer. Obviously, everybody knows that this is supposed to be post Loki, where the multiverse is created and pretty much you get like a plethora of different Spider-Men. The rumor has it it's supposed to be Tobey Maguire, the original Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, the second Spider-Man, and Tom Holland fighting what is to be projected to be the Sinister Six, which is to the likes of Rhino, Doc Ock, Electro, Sandman, Green Goblin, and of course, I am forgetting. Oh, and the Lizard. But of course, none of that has been confirmed. There are pieces and snippets and screenshots of what people seem to believe as the Sinister Six, but we only really got one or two definitive characters, which were Green Goblin with the pumpkin bomb being thrown on the bridge, and Doc Ock, obviously, with his infamous line in the trailer going, "Hello, Peter." Again, there is a multitude of different ideas that I have in my head of where they can go with this. I have an idea of what storyline this is based off of in the original comics, but in terms of just going over the trailer, I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't impressed. I think that like I said, the buildup was great. The introduction to the characters were good, and then of course seeing Peter kind of deal with his identity being revealed as it was to the end of Far From Home, where everybody finds out his true identity is Peter Parker, thanks to Mysterio revealing that on the big screen. I am not exactly a fan of how they went about doing that. I'm not a fan of how they're going to go about trying to alter that and entering the multiverse. Granted, once again, Loki, as that ended, for those of you that haven't seen it, once again, spoiler alert, the ending shows them killing Khan the Conqueror, or Khan the Conqueror, depending on your pronunciation of the character, in which opens up the fluctuation of multiple universes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Obviously, according to the directors of What If, which is the Marvel show that is currently airing or streaming on Disney Plus, that is supposed to be canon, meaning it is continuation. It is continuation and relevant to tying to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. It is tying into from Loki the introduction of a multiverse in which then Spider-Man is supposed to carry on through. So we don't know how it's going to finish because What If is not finished or completed. So once again, there's like bits and pieces and holes that are slowly being put together. Oh my God, the Yankees are just doing what they need to do. It's 3-0. Anyway, back on topic. Again, the trailer didn't necessarily piss me off. It didn't make me say, well, this is awful. It upset me because of where it's leading the story to be. But again, trailers could be misleading. So I'm hoping that this isn't exactly fully correct, or at least that it's elaborated more when the movie is released. But I thought it could have been done better. And again, I am being very, very, very critical very early on. But overall, I was not a fan of how they're going to go about introducing the multiverse and the story that they chose to go with.
So, listen, this is where Kevin, you're gonna have to check me like if I'm wrong in any sort of way because I am not, the biggest Marvel guy. I know you definitely have much more of an interest with this than I have. I'm catching up as far as like the Marvel universe as it currently is. Um, but let me focus on the trailer itself. So the trailer itself, when I first watched it, Kevin and I were having a discussion after I called the trailer mediocre, and he thought that was a little insulting. Um, I rewatched it again, and I can understand where he came from. It was probably a little bit too harsh for me to say that the trailer was mediocre. I watched it 3 times, and by the third time, I've gone from mediocre to it was okay. It was nothing earth shattering as far as I'm concerned. So the issue that I take with is essentially what they're setting up the movie to be as far as its premise goes. Obviously, in the last movie, you have Spider-Man's identity revealed as Peter Parker, and you have Tom Holland, who is going to be in this film, and he's talking about how he wants to have that changed, where nobody knows that he's Spider-Man. He wants to go back to the way things were, and that's really kind of like the point that I'm going to focus on here. Like the way that this is going to be in this movie. I just I don't really like the premise of it. It's like, okay, your identity is revealed to the world that you are Peter Parker, that you're Spider-Man. But you're going to change the entire universe because you're mad or you're upset about the fact that everybody knows that you're Spider-Man and it's affecting the relationships and your friendships that you've had with people throughout the first 2 movies. I just don't think it's like that good of a premise. It just seems like it's a little, I don't know, it's too it maybe a little too emotionally driven, but obviously they're setting it up for probably another Spider-Man movie down the road, or they're setting it up for a movie in a next chronological order for Marvel. So I kind of have to see where it goes from there. But that's really kind of my main issue is just essentially what they're basing this movie on is that they're going to change the entire universe for Spider-Man because he's upset about people knowing who he is and the tension that it's causing with his friends. I just it's not really the best premise to work with, but granted, it's a trailer. I'm not going to be overly critical. I have to eventually see what the movie's going to actually be about. The movie's coming out in December. You know, and Kevin and I were talking about that. There's a very good chance that it may get moved back just because of all the COVID stuff that's been going on. That's already pushed this movie back a couple times already. So I imagine there will be an official trailer that comes out. This was just a teaser trailer, just to kind of get people warmed up to the idea that this movie is going to come out pretty soon. But I do think seeing like Doc Ock was cool. I do think seeing eventually the Green Goblin once again that will definitely be cool again. So it's like I don't want to focus on the negatives too much here. There were definitely some positives. Um, I don't know what it is with me. I just like Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. I just think like he's like the perfect fit for that character. And seeing Doctor Strange in any way, shape, or form in this movie, it like there's some general excitement for me to see what his role is going to be in this movie. Um, whether or not we get to see all of the previous Spider-Mans, like Kevin mentioned in Andrew Garfield and the original in Tobey Maguire, I will definitely be paying attention to that. But as far as the trailer goes, it was okay. There were some good parts that I liked about it. There were some bad parts about it. I don't think that I'm gonna like the premise of where this movie's gonna actually end up going, but it's really early for me to say that. The movie's not coming out to December, so we kind of have to wait and see how it eventually turns out. But you know, it's gonna be one of like the biggest movies post COVID, so there's a lot riding on this, and I just hope that people are gonna be excited when this movie eventually comes out, and I hope people do go see it. So we definitely talk about this a little bit more once the movie actually gets released, I imagine, we'll try to do some sort of segment where Kevin and I review that movie. But until then, it's definitely generated some buzz, and I definitely think it was worthy of talking about here.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I could literally go into such a deep dive about this storyline and where I think it's going to go and my ideas and formulations and speculations as to how I think it's going to tie the MCU together and how it's going to tie Fox into the MCU. It just, there's a whole bunch of shit. Bottom line, I just want to give my dad a shout out. I wouldn't be the comic book connoisseur that I am if it wasn't for him. Shout out to my little brother who has taken the knowledge that our father has given us and like run with it, because my brother like studies these as if we were little again, because my dad used to read a lot of these stories and record a lot of the old shows and kind of just have us watching it with him whenever he had time, in between work and between shifts. So superheroes have always been a big portion of our lives. So again, like shout out to you, Pop. I really appreciate you. Love you, man. Like everything you've done for me and Max with these comic books like gives us joy in life. So seeing the comic books and the stories and the art from the books that we read come to life on the big screen means a whole lot to us. And I'm just excited to see where this generation of Spider-Man goes, or should I say, where this version of Spider-Man goes. And if it does, in fact, bring back the OGs or the original Spider-Man, I'm not going to be upset, because you are going to see something that was always dreamed about on paper to come out on a big screen TV. And that is the concept of the multiverse, which is absolutely unheard of to actually hit the screen because it's such a complex storyline within the books and the novels. So to tie in other Spider-Men and their villains and kind of assimilate a Sinister Six timeline is going to be really fascinating. Again, my qualm is not with the storyline itself. The multiverse is phenomenal. The Sinister Six is a great group. The thought of bringing all the other Spider-Men together is great. It's the formulation of how it's going to be created in the MCU, and I'm not really liking it. And before I go further into it, I'm only referring to the fact that when Peter in the trailer, when Peter goes to Doctor Strange and he says, "I don't want people to know who I am. Can you fix this?" Let's remember and reverse, or should I say rewind. Doctor Strange basically said, "I'm willing to let Tony die to save the timeline and save like humanity." Obviously, we know that ended up not happening, and Thanos snapped his fingers, and then the next Infinity movie came out, or the next Avengers movie came out, and they saved the world at the price of Tony's life. So we know that Doctor Strange is not heartless, but you can tell that Doctor Strange as an individual character isn't willing to just roll over and give you something because you ask for it. So for Peter to kind of walk into the building and be like, "Hey, I like don't want people to know who I am anymore. Can you like fucking fix this?" Like that just seems stupid. That Doctor Strange is like, "Yeah, fuck it. It might be catastrophical damage at the end of it, but sure, let's just fuck this whole thing up." Like I don't know. It doesn't seem realistic. It doesn't seem authentic to Doctor Strange's character that has been portrayed in the last several movies that he's been in since he was introduced. So, there's speculation that Mephisto could be involved. There's speculation that, this could end up just being a continuation, like I had stated, from What If and Loki. Just this is how they introduce how the multiverse gets blown up. Um, there's a possibility this could be the introduction of Secret Wars. Again, all of these characters and things that I'm mentioning are in the books and the comics. You can find them online. You can find them on Wiki, everywhere. So again, my mind is running a mile a minute, and I know like the only person that's probably going to get this is probably going to be my brother and Tyree, who we've had on the show a couple of times. Holy hell, Joey Gallo just homered. It's wow, it's 6-0. I think the concept of this is great. I just need to see more, and I have to hope that Doctor Strange doesn't just say yes and that there's an actual reason why he's helping Peter. I can't just accept that he walked through the door and he was just like, "Yeah, sure, like, totally, I'll erase the world's mind," because that would make this to be just like the comic book series One More Day, which in that series, Peter and Mary Jane, or should I say Peter alone, Aunt May dies, she gets shot, and he wants her back to life. And he goes to like Doctor Strange, and he goes to like a bunch of different characters, Doctor Doom, Reed Richards. Can you bring her back? Can you bring her back? And he says no. Like everybody pretty much just says no. Long story short, he bumps into a child, and he's already like overcome with like such anger and grief. The child is talking to him, and he snaps, and he's like, "Get away from me!" And like a lady, a group with a lady in the middle dressed in red approaches him and says, "Hey, I can save Aunt May. I can bring her back to life." Turns out that woman ends up being Mephisto, who is a demon, the devil, depends on what arc or what cinematic universe you're looking at. And he says, "I don't want your soul. I want your marriage." And him and Mary Jane have till midnight to make a decision on whether or not their marriage is worth Aunt May's life. They concur that it is. And Mephisto then reveals that girl was Peter and Mary Jane's daughter. And that was a glimpse of what they will now never have because they basically signed the deal with the devil. Their marriage never existed. Aunt May is brought back to life. Peter wakes up as if it's a dream, and he's back in Aunt May's house, and Mary Jane has no idea who he is.
Hmm.
So the thought of like Doctor Strange doing this and like kind of like messing this all up and like kind of like making it's not an ultimatum, but like you can tell like it's similar. Like, I want to save Aunt May. I want to change everybody's memory. It's like a life altering decision in terms of like how that spell would work. And it's very similar. So people are starting to think that Mephisto is Doctor Strange in this because it just doesn't the character doesn't match up to what Doctor Strange would do. And the cinematic accuracy of like the portrayal of like the famous scene in the comic where Mephisto is sitting at a fireplace drinking wine in like a robe, and then Doctor Strange is in front of a fireplace with coffee and like a bubble coat, like in winter. Again, you could just see the homage that they're paying to the comic book, which makes me really believe that this really is based off of the One More Day storyline. But again, this is just my speculation. This is just my knowledge of the books that I've read. But that's kind of all I'm gonna say. Spider-Man is my second favorite superhero, by the way. First is Nightwing, but Spider-Man being from New York, obviously from Queens, and him being a kid throughout the comic books has just always touched home and kind of been a soft spot in my heart. So, hey, whatever happens, happens. I ain't gonna be mad at it. It's not like it's gonna be the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3, which was god awful, probably the worst one that's ever come out. But we will see what happens because just the introduction to the multiverse in itself will bring this movie, this title, into a whole new existence, a whole new generation of incredible movies.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's what I meant when when I said that I'm going to lean on Kevin's expertise when it comes to subjects like this because I know Kevin can literally turn this into an hour-long review just off the trailer. Like
Yeah.
he, like Kevin is like that well in depth when it comes to subjects like this. So, I'm still learning the whole Marvel universe. I have a working knowledge, I'll put it that way, when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, kind
Guys,
of bear.
don't get me wrong. I haven't read all the books. I haven't read all the comics. I have not read every single thing. So I am not an expert at any means. I'm just familiar with this storyline. I'm familiar with the concept in which they're going to. Obviously, everybody knows the rumors. If you follow the TikToks and the Twitters and the Instagram fan pages, that people are just kind of like speculating all these rumors. I bounced off of the things that I heard. I went off of things that I read. I reread some of that novel in terms of trying to get familiar with the one more day concept, and it seemed very similar. So please, if there's any superhero fans that know more than me, please enlighten me in the comments. Again, I'm not trying to say that this is what's going to happen. My opinion is very strong in this sense, and I feel confident in my knowledge. Again, I could be missing some fine details in certain storylines, but please, like I said, don't take this as I said this cemented in stone or that I think this movie is going to be trash. This is a trailer review of what we think is going to happen. And of course, me being a little bit more educated in the Marvel world than Kyle is, I was able to give a little bit more of an in depth opinion. So, again, if anybody wants to shoot the shit and go back and forth in the comments, I'm open to it. If you want to educate me on something, feel free. I'm always down to learn. Comic books are right up there with sports, man. I know we don't get to talk about these things a lot, but like it's like family, sports, and like comics and like movies like that. It's just woo, love it.
Well, that's why I thought it would be a nice switch up to just talk about this. It's very rare that we talk about this when it comes to movie reviews or just even trailer reviews in this sense. So I figured this would be a nice switch up, and this was right down your alleyway. So I figured
Oh yeah.
this would be a good one. So and for everybody that tuned in to watch it, we just say thank you and we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys like the video down below. If you guys like the channel, or if you guys want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, hit that subscribe button below. Any sort of support that we can get for the channel, Kevin and I definitely appreciate it. Kevin, is there anything that you wanted to hit on before we wrap this up?
No, sir. Hopefully, it doesn't get pushed back. Hopefully, this stays where it's at because I am tired of movies being pushed back, but I'm also tired of COVID ruining all these fucking phenomenal things that are supposedly coming out. But again, like Kyle said, any support, comments, likes, subscriptions, please. We appreciate it and we love you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and with that said, we will see you guys later.